All right. Welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Byrne. Evan, how we doing, man?
We're doing well. Doing well. It's that time of in between Christmas and New Year's where everything's just kind of a blur, and then all of a sudden it's the new year. That's where I'm at right now.
You're right about that. I think everybody is ready for 2024 to start. Okay. Before we talk about the games, do you have any New Year's resolutions?
I don't know. I was never big into those. I think one would probably just be, time management, pick and choose kind of the correct things to do every day instead of sleeping in later than I probably should be, kind of starting the day earlier and kind of be more productive, I would say is a good one for me.
Yeah, time management, that is a massive thing for me. That's actually been a lifelong struggle. I've never been good at time management. Time management, I don't know. Like, I like when people think they're going to, change their personalities and stuff. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go to church more, or I'm going to be more positive. And it's just like, well, why don't you get goals that are attainable? Okay?
Yeah.
Because I hate it when people say, I'm going to try to be more positive, because it's like, okay, everybody gets mad at stuff.
Yeah.
Okay? Really depends on what your makeup is. Really, I've been the same person for about, when do you really develop a personality? Like when you're, 9 or 10 or something like that?
Or later elementary school.
Yeah. So I'm not going to sit there and lie and be like, oh, I'm going to be more positive, because I'm going to get mad at stuff. That's just how I'm wired. I get angry at stuff very easily. I get annoyed at stuff very easily. So it's just not going to be one of those things where it's just like, you know what? This is going to be the year where I completely change who I am. I'm not doing that. So one more question. Are you watching? Are you a huge watch the ball drop type of guy?
Yeah, but it's really, I don't pay attention until it's time for it to drop. Because we usually do stuff on New Year's Eve, but I won't sit down and watch the New Year's Eve show. My mom will have it on. She's always had her, whoever's house we go to, but I'm not paying attention to that.
Yeah, no, because then you watch a bunch of has-beens, then you get I don't know, you'll get some random stuff. You'll get a bunch of random stars just kind of thrown in there,
and it's for hours and it's it's repetitive. It's random musicians were performing in San Diego and back to New York, and now we're in Los Angeles. It's all over the place. I just never got into it.
Yeah, the most random.
Yeah,
the most random one when he was big was when they had Ninja go up there and floss.
Yep.
That was
looking a little quiet down there, whatever he says. That was cringe. That was peak Ninja streaming. They had him streaming at the New Year's Eve event.
Yeah, now that was probably the worst guess you could possibly get, because nobody in their 40s is really going to care about Ninja.
Or know who he is.
People are, I don't even know if people our age would. It's probably 10 or 15-year-olds. That's more or less his demographic. But if I'm in my 40s, I'm like, who the hell is up here?
Yeah, and why is he playing
Fortnite? And now it's I don't even know if people still care about Fortnite, to be honest with you. Okay, they're excited about I'm trying to understand.
The hype is not there anymore.
No, it was there when it first came out, but I don't know how many of those streamers are still big, or how many people still care about those streamers.
Yeah, they're still big, but not 2019, 18 big.
You're right. Yeah, Ninja fell off completely.
Yeah, he fell off. He's kind of resurfacing. He's kind of funny with because now he's not kid friendly anymore as much. He's more humorous. But yeah, it's not like I'm not going to sit down for 2 hours and watch someone else play when I can do it myself.
And Evan obviously used to be a streamer.
Yeah, I used to do that. I don't have time anymore, but
it
was fun. But I never watched other people. I would just do it for myself and just see what would happen, and then just try to pick. Maybe that's my New Year's resolution. Maybe find more time to do that. But I got to find a good game to play because there's no really good games out anymore that I want to like sit down and play.
Yeah,
let alone spend $70 on one.
Yeah, like it's fun being an adult, but at the same time, it also kind of sucks because it's just like because the things you used to have time for, it's just like you have like responsibilities and jobs and all this other stuff now. So it's just you just don't have as much time anymore, and you could just kind of feel yourself just getting older.
Yep.
So you're just like you can do whatever you want, but at the same time, you can't.
Yes, you can do whatever you want when you have that free hour in your day.
Exactly. Like to be honest with you, the only people who can really do whatever they want are probably, I would say, people in college.
I had more time in college than I thought I should.
That 18 to 22 year window, or 23, no matter how long you go to college, that window where you're out from under your parents' umbrella, you could basically do whatever you want because obviously they're not there.
Yep.
But I think once you have to get a job and start paying for stuff, apartment, then it's just like, oh shoot, this sucks. Now I have like responsibility and
now I have to like survive.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into the games because so Milwaukee played their first game. December 20th. So it was kind of weird because December 23rd, I did not know the Bucks were playing. I got to admit that. My dad actually had to let me know that the Bucks were playing because I was just like, wait, they're playing the Knicks on the 23rd and then the 25th? That was stupid.
Yep, that's the NBA.
That was like, and we'll get into the Christmas Day game in a sec, but so Milwaukee, they knocked off the Knicks on the 23rd.
Yes.
So kind of reading over the stat line a little bit. So Giannis had 23, Middleton had 20, Damon Beasley had 19, BP had 23. And really what stuck out to me for this game is obviously the scoring was balanced. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, is that when the scoring is balanced, Milwaukee usually wins. And it also helps. It feels like every time Milwaukee's played the Knicks, it feels like if Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle just have good games, but everybody else stinks up the joint, Milwaukee usually wins. And that's kind of what happened in this game. They were able to pull it off. Evan, I don't have the score in front of me. Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, it was 130 to 111.
Okay, so it wasn't particularly close. And Milwaukee in their matchups against New York have usually done pretty well because you just really haven't worried about any other player other than Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle.
Mm-hmm.
Because New York just doesn't, like, their role players aren't very good. Like, you'll get once in a while a good game from RJ Barrett, but outside of that, it's just like New York just doesn't provide much offensively. They're not a very good three-point shooting team. Okay. Their whole offensive strategy is just Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, like, make something happen.
Yes.
And it especially gets tougher when Julius Randle has a bad game and Jalen Brunson just kind of has to carry the scoring load.
Yeah, and I know it was one of these games. I think it was the Christmas one, but it was one of those games where every time the Bucks play a team that have a higher end all-star, I'm not going to say like top caliber player, but you have an all-star player guard, they are always scoring an absurd amount of points. I know it was like Brunson the last game they had, I think he scored 35 to 40, and it's Tyler Heroes has a lot, Kyrie, Luka, all these guys. And you're watching these games, I'll have to put the stats up for the Nets one when we get there, but the paint points, oof. I felt like At this point, especially for the Christmas game too, based on like how they were playing defense wise, it just seems like once they get into just in front of the free throw line, it's like, all right, I'm done. It's like, let's hope they miss. And that's how I feel like for every single shot. Because it's like, you can predict what's going to happen. Someone's going to pull up. Jalen Brunson's going to pull up, I don't know, 10, 15 feet out. He's going to make it almost every time. Because Brook Lopez is not going to contest. He's not going to go out of his way because then you're going to swing right by him, layup. So it's like either come to me or shoot it. And I feel like there's no in between. But yeah, that's what I feel like a lot with Jalen Brunson itself. You know what he's going to do. You can't guard it. So you just kind of like have to let it happen. Yeah, if no one else can soar outside of Brunson and Randall, you're pretty much good. You're not going to get a 40-point game out of RJ Barrett. Dante is not going to, I don't know. Dante's not going to beat the Dante he kind of was on the Bucks, but he's not going to drop 30 or 40 points. You're pretty much good if you can just hold Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. And again, Julius Randle had an absurd shooting game once again. But yeah, I don't know. That game was just kind of expected. Christmas, I kind of expect that also because that's what happens when you do a back-to-back in the same city. Someone's bound to lose, and it was going to be the Bucks. It kind of made the most sense. You win the first three. Looking at that, but yeah, I don't know. A well-balanced game. You pretty much covered what I was kind of going to say. Giannis, good game. Chris, good game. Bobby, really good game off the bench. Again, another double-double. But that's pretty much all I had noted-wise. But it was a good game, and it was nice to have right before Christmas at 11 a.m.
And I'm sure there's a stat on this. I don't have it in front of me, but I feel like Milwaukee has got to be top 5 in like allowing just so many blow-bys, because it feels like when the other team gets to the paint, like there's just no resistance there. Like you could throw out all the stats where it's like, oh, Brook Lopez, probably top 5 in blocks, I would say. But it just feels like when he's not out there, like Milwaukee, like the points of the paint for the opposing team just ratchets up. Because they don't have another guy who can, they don't have another rim protector outside of Lopez who can, but like, I'm sorry, but like, I know he's big, but I would consider Giannis like a true rim protector.
No, because he's not considered a center. Obviously he's a power forward, but yeah, he's not, just because you're tall doesn't mean you can protect the rim. That's how I see it.
No. And again, I don't know why this continues to be the case where it just feels like, and a lot of it comes in transition too, where like Milwaukee, like will just score a basket and then the other team coming down, boom, easy layup. It's just like, why is nobody getting back? Okay. Why is there no resistance to contest some of these shots? I mean, I'm looking at them like, okay, I understand that in the NBA, a lot of these scorers are, in the 110s or 120. But a lot of these are just simple defensive miscues. This has nothing to do with talent, because, look, every player in the NBA is talented. No matter what you want to say, every player in the NBA is talented. But, when a lot of it's just blow-bys and easy baskets, like anybody's going to make that.
Yeah, there's like 15 to 20 points a game for every team that's like, if you guard a little more, you could probably cut it in half. Again, you're going to get shots up sometimes where they're going to go in, but sometimes it's like, I feel like that could have been defendable if they just shifted a foot or two or drop back 5. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, and I'm just, and it makes me wonder like what Griffin's defensive philosophy is. Is it like, does he want it? Does he want them to be like, well, we're going to give up a lot of points in the paint? It's kind of like a double-edged sword, because last year Milwaukee allowed a lot of attempts from 3, but now it feels like this year it's kind of swung the other direction where it's we'll just give up points in the paint and allow and give up less threes.
Yeah, and especially because I don't know, it was usually I know the Celtics had like 50 attempts on them in Game 7. 2 years ago, so 2022, in the playoffs. And now we're kind of seeing, some teams are still shooting a lot, but honestly, a lot of the teams I've seen shooting threes for the Bucks have not been making a lot. I know in the Nets game, when we get to that was not a good 3-point game just for them overall. But yeah, 30 attempts for the Knicks in the first one. for the 23rd, 9 out of 29. Again, I see that not being too bad, but they still gave up 111 points because everything else is in the paint. But yeah, I don't know what I like better. I personally would rather have them give up 3 points or the 3-point shot than an easy layup, just because there's a higher risk of you giving up 3 points than there are 2 points 5 to 0 feet away from the hoop. So it's a trade-off, but unfortunately, it's going to be something that we're going to have to get used to.
Yeah, and like you said before, we'll see how this team is after Christmas. Well, it's now after Christmas, so now this is going to be a good barometer for how Milwaukee does the rest of the season.
Yes.
If their defense improves or not.
Yep, this is judgment time in the next, I would say, 2-3 weeks is when I think NBA teams should really be judged on kind of overall gameplay. Again, we've mentioned that a few times before, but we are clear into the season. Now it's time to be critical about the future, playoffs, trade deadline, post All-Star game, anything in that parameter.
Yep. So, moving on, kind of easy, Evan. This is the same opponent as you kind of mentioned before. Milwaukee played the New York Knicks, early game like Christmas Day. Unfortunately, Milwaukee was unable to pull it out, losing to the Knicks 129 to 122. Kind of watching this game, what kind of stuck out to you?
Laziness. Oh my God, they just weren't moving. I was looking at the stats again. The Bucks had a 4-point lead in the first minute of the first quarter, and that was their only lead of the entire game. They were consistently down like 12 to 14 throughout the entire game. Then they got it to like 4 in the third quarter, and then it was back to 10, 12, where they ended the quarter down 1 more point than they started. So it was so consistent in the score change that nothing changed that entire game. And I felt I was just watching easy baskets by the Knicks, and the amount of fouls the Bucks were giving. It's like you had a chance to build your lead back, tie it, and even take a lead in a couple runs that they had in the third quarter. But they would go on this run, and then they would foul 3 straight possessions or 2 straight, or they turn the ball over. It's like they're digging themselves in a deeper hole right as they've gotten out of it. I noticed in the third quarter, just in general, I wanted to pull up the summary again. So for their third quarter, they both scored 36 points, and they both scored, or Knicks scored 26 and to the Bucks 24 in the second quarter. So they were pretty even in the second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. But the first quarter, they went down 9. So it was like, that was pretty much the deciding factor. But yeah, it was just so lazy, and just like it looked like they didn't want to be there again, which makes sense because it's Christmas morning. It was 11 a.m. But come on, that was my the way I was going to feel about the day was based off of that game, and having it be at 11 a.m. was was not fun to do. But yeah, it just nothing changed. Super consistent on both sides, foul wise, scoring wise. It just felt lazy. I turned it off with like 7 minutes left in the game. Like, I know this is going to come out. Boring game just in general. It wasn't like they lost and it was a good game. This was so boring to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm kind of looking at the stats here. There wasn't anything New York did offensively that was like, oh my God, this is why they won. Number one, New York had balanced scoring. Okay, so when you kind of look at the stats here, okay, let's see. Randall had 24. RJ Barrett finally had a good game with 21. Mm-hmm. Brunson had 38. Emmanuel quickly had 20. Josh Hart had 10. Hartenstein had 11. So when you kind of combine all those factors together, and then you look at Milwaukee right here. All right, Lillard, Middleton, Giannis, Lillard 32, Giannis 32, Middleton 24. And then nobody else really did anything. I mean, if you want to throw in Brook Lopez having 14 and BP having 12, fine. But it just felt like New York finally had some of its role players step up for this game.
Yeah, and looking back at it, Malik Beasley took 2 shots in 19 minutes. Like, if he has a game that he has played this entire year, they win that game. He was 0 for 2 in 19 minutes. You throw in 3 baskets, you win the game. Like, it's that simple. And I hate when that happens because there's always something easy that you can pick out where that was the deciding factor. Like, how did they play a game where arguably one of your top scorers is shooting two field goals that game? Now, I don't know if that was better defense based off of the first game against the Knicks, where Beasley had 5 3-pointers. Was he guarded better? Was he just not deciding to take any shots? But my God, that's a Tony Snell game almost. Again, just running around. He did have a couple rebounds and assists, but geez, 2 shots in 19 minutes is a horrible look. But yeah, some of these guys just was not shooting in the amount of time that they were playing. It was bound to happen. Couldn't sweep the Knicks. You have the back-to-back Christmas morning. You just beat them on Saturday. Now the Knicks are going to have to figure out how to guard someone in particular, how to play better, how to fix around. Yeah, it was doomed to happen, and it happened.
The other thing, too, is I just don't understand Milwaukee lost this game. Because usually the deciding factor in some of these games is second chance points.
Yep.
But
they outdid them.
Milwaukee had 17 offensive rebounds and New York only had 7. So I'm trying to sift through. I'm like, why did they really lose this game? And
did you see the points in the paint?
Yep. That was 72-50.
That's so bad. That's almost like a quarter scoring in the paint itself. Or sorry, no, I'm thinking of something else. The 72 points in the paint to 50. I was looking at another stat. The 72 points, that's what they scored, 129, was it? Yeah, 129. So over half of your points were scored in the paint. And a lot of those were just the blow-bys that you were saying earlier, like the stat that's not there that should be there. It just felt like once they get to a certain part, it's like Brooke is like, I'm done, and here's the hoop. Or it's Jalen Brunson will floater, and as he's shooting it, and Brooke's like, oh, I got to contest it, and it's already overset into the basket. I don't know. It was just such a repetitive game. It was so boring. I felt like there wasn't even like a good play that happened where it's like, ooh, that was kind of fun or worth the watch. There was a Giannis alley-oop that was cool, but that was it. But yeah, just I don't know. It was just really boring. I just felt like there was nothing that I could get excited about, even though they lost. And then seeing that they gave up 72 points in the paint also doesn't help.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, we understand Milwaukee plays on Christmas morning, but I think everybody kind of had low energy. Like, I'm going to be honest, I didn't really get up for this game, or I was just like, oh my God, Bucks play at Christmas. Like,
yep.
I was like, all right,
it was a bad time. They have the New York time series. It's an hour earlier or so, or 2 hours earlier. But man, disappointing, but kind of predicted, I think, in my opinion. You're bound to lose one of these games to the Knicks. It's hard to 4-game sweep a team if you're somewhat competing for a middle seed. But yeah, predictable. Just unfortunate that they only lost by 7.
Yeah, and of course, because I'm like such a baby, I just actually blame the NBA schedule. I was like, okay, whoever scheduled this is basically a Knicks fan, because he was like, well, yeah, what's more magical than the Knicks winning on Christmas Day?
Yeah, I saw an article that some Bucks account posted that I follow, where after they lost this game, I thought I screenshotted it, but I didn't. They like described the Bucks like disheartening loss, and like the words that the adjectives they were using to describe the Bucks loss was like, this is their 10th straight loss in a row, and they're like crumbling and falling apart. It's like they just came off a 7-game win streak. They just beat them by what is that, 19 points 2 days before, and now they're like, oh no, what is happening to the Bucks in New York? I saw like a meme where it was Giannis's face on the Kevin, is that his name, from Home Alone, like lost in New York. It's like they just beat this team 2 days ago by 19 points, and then they lose by 7 on Christmas morning. Like, give me a break. It was like the stupidest headline. And then this account posted it, and it's like they're acting like they're the Pistons right now. It's like, come on. Like, I know it's clickbait media garbage, but it's like that is like, after doing no research about the Bucks win streak, the amount of points they've been scoring, how Giannis and Lillard. I'm like, this is stupid. This is so stupid. And I thought I screenshotted it, but I did not.
So that could either be one of two things. They could either be trolling you, or they're probably one of those fans who every loss you act like the sky is falling. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about those fans. Like sometimes after every loss, people who are like, well, someone needs to be fired and blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, all right.
Yeah, if we're on maybe a 15-game losing streak and we're scoring 100 points, and yeah, it's like, come on, it was dumb.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I might be in the minority here. I don't, unless it's Roy Warrington. Like I never really call for just coaches to get fired because it's just like, these guys have families and all this other stuff. So I don't think it's like, they're doing the best they. And again, this might be like a, like a T-ball mindset where everyone, they're doing the best they can.
Yeah.
So I just don't, unless it's warranted. Like privately, I'll probably think a coach should be fired, but like I'm not going to be out here just like post like, oh, you should fire, blah blah blah, and I'm just because it's just, because sports fans can be, they can be toxic, they can be negative sometimes, and it's just, I don't do that. Like I don't call for people to be fired. I don't act like after every loss like the sky is falling. Sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple. I would like for the Bucks to win almost every game. I would love them for them to be the Golden State Warriors of 2015. It's not 2015, 2016. It's not going to happen. But most of the time, sometimes your team's going to lose, and that's okay.
Yep, and it was one of those games where you kind of knew where it was going to go eventually. So it was one of those where, all right, it was a fun win streak. They're still playing good basketball. You can't win every single game in a row, unfortunately. But yeah, it is what it is. And then, yeah, break from the 26th, and we get into the game, 2 days ago against the Nets. I had to rewatch this one. I haven't been able to watch some of the games live recently just with work. But this almost became a huge Bucks moment with who was playing in this Nets game. And then they finally just picked it up in the fourth quarter. But this game was way too close for way too long for who they were playing on the Nets. No one played. This was a throwaway game, and it was almost a loss to a throwaway game. Like that, that would have been bad. But yeah, overall, though, they still ended up winning by 22 points.
Yeah, and not only for who they were playing, but how the Nets divvied up the minutes.
Yeah, it was
kind of weird. It was kind of weird because I didn't understand why Jock Vaughn did it like this. So in case you guys are unaware, okay, so the Nets, a surplus of young talent right now. Obviously, they're missing a lot of guys, but how they divvied up the minutes are kind of weird. So Mikal Bridges didn't play after the first quarter.
Yes.
Royce O'Neal, I don't think didn't play after the first quarter.
Yeah, he only played 10 minutes.
Cam Thomas didn't play after the first quarter. So really what they did was they subbed in a lot of their other guys, we'll call them, such as Dennis Smith Jr., who actually dropped 14 points.
I forgot about that guy.
That's a throwback name. Jalen Wilson, the rookie out of Kansas, he dropped in 21. Very talented player. He actually he went to school at Kansas. He played Wisconsin last year. Very talented player. Like, tough to stop. Armani Brooks, Trendon Wofford, Noah Clowney, who's Keon Johnson. And I'm going to have to, and Dariq Whitehead. Like, so those are the guys that the Nets were playing for basically the rest of the game. And obviously Harry Giles was in. Okay. These are Yeah. So those were the guys that Milwaukee went up against. And you're right, it was close for a lot of the game until Milwaukee eventually pulled away, but geez Louise, it was like, it's just like who were some of these guys? You know what I mean? Like
there were some where it's like, whoa, I usually know a good chunk of guys. Now I'm not like a nobody who doesn't know any role players, but there are some teams where it's like I don't know who is on your team. Like I don't know anyone on the it's like the rebuilding teams who have just traded all their guys. So like I don't know a lot of the Wizards guys. I don't know a lot of the Spurs players. I don't know a lot of the Nets players, like outside of their main starters. And some of these guys came in, it's like, whoa, who are you? And I don't know. It was one of those things where it's like this is a Bucks moment to watch them almost give this game to the Nets team, who's again, Cam Johnson wasn't even playing to begin with. Lonnie Walker wasn't playing to begin with, and then Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas were out after the first quarter, and it was all right. It's a tie game, and we're in the third quarter. Like, when's the joke over? And then they finally kind of lifted out. But yeah, it was a close game for a long time. And I'm going to say it. I think I'm going to be negative, and I know I don't want to be negative on this player, but I think this was top 3 worst games for Brook Lopez on his tenure with the Bucks. He looked so bad that game. 1 for 7 shooting, 0 for 6 on 3, so he had 2 points. He had 3 fouls. He was getting, I think 2 defensive 3 seconds. He was getting yammed on, 2 by Dennis Smith, 1 by I think Clowney, one of the other guys. He just looked lost against these young guys, and I don't know. Shooting wasn't going in, and nothing else was working. I think Brook was just wanting to kind of get out there, and he was outscored by his brother, Robin Lopez, who came in crunch time at the end of the game and hit a corner 3 right in front of the Bucks bench. Outscored him. Yeah, it was really just a really good game from Giannis. Chris finally had a really good game. I know the last podcast said this is probably, this was hands down his best one shooting wise. 27 points, looking like vintage Chris Middleton again. But yeah, just a kind of hoping blowout game, but they still gave up 122 points to the 13th to end of the bench guys primarily.
Yeah, and look, surprisingly, Campaign had a good game. 18 points.
He certainly keep back up.
Yeah. Yeah, and for Brook Lopez's sake, like that could be one of those games where like he looked his age. He looked
slow. That was the when you pair up the young guys to Brook, it was not good.
Yeah, and I saw it's like my favorite thing is when Brook hacks somebody and he still complains about the foul.
Yep.
My favorite thing. That will never not be my favorite thing in the world. Is when Brook commits the most obvious foul of all time.
And they show the replay. Karate chops their wrist.
What? That's a foul. But
did you see the technical he got that game?
I did.
The headbutt. The headbutting the ball up in the air at halftime, then they teed him up.
Oh yeah. They got free throws out of that. That was
coming back at the half. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that was. But
that was a frustrated kind of move where nothing's going in. Let me just fool around and it gets teed up.
That can't happen. I mean, it's against the Nets. It's like you got to be playing a little better, and you got to be. Brook Lopez is supposed to be one of the veteran leaders. Unfortunately, in that particular moment, he didn't act like it. Like you can't pick up a technical like once the half's like.
There's no game going on.
No, that's like obviously he was frustrated. He felt like there were some calls that he didn't get, and maybe he felt like the refs were targeting him for certain foul calls. But again, you can't in that situation. You can't let your emotions get the best of you. But other than that, it really wasn't anything to write home about. I mean, Milwaukee, like 144, 122. They shot almost 60% from the field. And let's see.
Decent from 3-pointers. That was one of my other kind of notes. Again, you're not going to shoot 50% or over every time, but they shot 51 3-pointers. They made 23. So rounding, they got the 0.1%, so 45%. Not horrible. Campaign's looking really nice on the 3-point shot. Chris shot 3 for 7 again. I think really Campaign and Beasley were their main 3-point guys, both at 5 for 8. Then you got Marjan and Bobby with 2 of 3, but 3-point honestly is looking a lot better than I thought it was going to be, especially with Lillard kind of shooting a little more consistent. Now he has those games here or there where he's like 3 for 10. This one he was 3 for 9, but you win some, you lose some shooting threes. But if they can't score or if they're not going to attack the paint, they got to do well on 3-pointers. That was like last year where they were doing horrible trying to attack the paint, and then they would resort to 3-point shooting, and then they would suck.
Yeah, and I think the biggest concern right now for Milwaukee is opponents' offensive rebounds.
Yes, it's because
the Nets had 17 offensive rebounds, and honestly, that's been a concern throughout the whole year, is blow-bys and opponent offensive rebounds. Like, it just feels like Milwaukee just gives up way too many offensive rebounds.
Yeah, there was a play during the Nets game where they forced the Nets to shoot a 3-pointer, and they were doing horrible on threes. The Nets, I was going to say earlier, the Nets only had 7 3-pointers that game. There were 7 of 32, which is atrocious. They had a play where Nets shot a 3-point, bricked the hell out of it, like off the side of the rim. Then the Nets get the rebound because there was no box out. And then they, not a putback layup, but like a very close floater, bricked that one and still didn't get the rebound. So that's 2 offensive rebounds, and they shot another 3 and miss it. Again, it's one of those things where, well, they still ended up missing the shot. They didn't get any points, but still, it was just lazy. Everyone looks at the ball, and I'm expecting this guy to get it, but I'm expecting him to get it. Then no one gets it. Then the other team gets it. Just, it's sloppy. It's lazy. It's like, just go get the ball or box out at least someone. But yeah, it was just rebound after rebound after rebound offensively for the Nets in general. And a lot of it led to second chance points. Yeah, just lazy play, lazy box outs.
Yeah, and I think we hope that gets rectified. But like I would say throughout the year, maybe that could be one of those things that's like a growing pains thing where, hopefully that gets kind of fixed before they head into the playoffs. So I don't have anything else. Evan, you got anything else?
Yes. The Bucks, I don't know if you saw, but they hired a new assistant manager or assistant coach, not manager, for the, I guess, replacement for Terry Stotts. That one was still vacant, or like that role, I guess. But they hired Trevor Gleason, who coached, primarily known for the NBL, for Australia, I think that is, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he's been coaching since 1990. Assistant with the Toronto Raptors, so that's why I'm assuming Griffin went after him again. But yeah, had a couple overseas and then did a lot of, I think this is WNBA. Potentially, is Sioux Falls, is that? No, sorry, G League, sorry. Couple G Leagues in the early 2000s, but 2-time NBL Coach of the Year, 5-time NBL champion for coaching, NBL Cup winner in 2021. So seems like he knows what he's doing, and he's familiar with Adrian Griffin. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. But yeah, that was very low. It wasn't like very publicized that they hired a new coach. But yeah, so hopefully that kind of makes up in the future for games as well. Hopefully the guys like him, that he'll do somewhat to kind of help them. But I saw he was at the Nets game. They kind of showed him next to Vin Baker. So fingers crossed that one works out overall.
Yep. So welcome to Milwaukee, Trevor Gleason.
Yes.
So thank you guys for tuning in to the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. And we will see you guys next year.
Week. Oh, yeah. Next year. Man, look at that. Look at that dad joke right there. See you in a year.
There we go. All right. See you guys next year.